Hello, everybody. This is Deanna Laird with Accounting Fly. I want to welcome you to the session this afternoon with Jason Blumer, and we're very happy that you could join us today and learn about entrepreneurship and the rise of the accounting entrepreneur. It's going to be a great session. If any of you haven't heard Jason before, you're in for a treat. Always terrific information, and today it's going to be the same. So glad you're here. Let me just cover a couple of items real quick just to make sure that everybody is taken care of and we can communicate via this webinar. For those of you in the audience, you are on mute just for us to be able to keep down background noise and such, but we can still communicate. And the best way for us to communicate is for you to type in questions or comments in the answer panel. And that is in probably the right-hand side of your screen. If you're on a mobile device, it may be at the bottom of your screen, but there's a toolkit as a part of GoToWebinar. And if you open that up, you'll see questions, and you can expand the question panel and type in questions. I will monitor those throughout the webinar, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of towards the end of this hour. So put in your questions that you want Jason to answer, and we will get to those towards the end of the session. So don't be shy. We want to hear what you have to say. And also, if you have audio problems, if you're joining directly through your laptop or your device, that's great. Hopefully the audio will be fantastic. It usually is, but sometimes you might run into some difficulties or some interference. If you run into that problem, in the audio section of that toolkit, you can click on the tool or the little radio button that says you want to join by phone, and you'll see a phone number there, and then you can dial in via phone, and typically you can get better audio that way. Okay, so hopefully that covers some housekeeping items that are important. And now I'd like to really jump into the topic to get into this really interesting thought, in fact, about the importance of being an entrepreneur. So I'm going to introduce Jason to you, and then I'll hand it over to him. And don't forget about putting in those questions so that we can get back with you. But Jason, as I said, is here with us today, and Jason is the Chief Innovation Officer of his firm, Blumer and Associates CPA. This firm was one of the first to move from a traditional office environment to a virtual environment where they serve creatives only. Jason leads a team that works in a results-only work environment, and he focuses heavily on business coaching while his team meets the technical and compliance needs of their customers. Jason also founded Thriveal in 2010 as a way to help small CPA firm owners connect. And since that time, Thriveal has helped many small firms grow really by providing an online community, coaching services, webinars, and live events. The newest offerings include a lab for experimentation and an academy for continuing education for CPAs. An incubator for new firms began in 2015, and a second group will be starting in 2016 this year, so keep your eyes open for that. Deeper Weekend is the annual live event by Thriveal in Greensville, South Carolina, so something to be aware of and really pay attention to it and get involved with this. Jason hosts two podcasts, and one's the Thrivecast, and one is the Businessology Show. And he speaks and writes frequently for CPAs and creatives, which is his firm's chosen niche. He's been honored as one of the 40 under 40 in the profession by CPA Practice Advisor, as well as one of the top 100 most influential people in accounting by Accounting Today. Jason loves to watch documentaries on just about anything and is working on his personal bests in CrossFit several times a week. He lives in Greensville, South Carolina with his wife and their 3 daughters. So you can tell that Jason is a very busy, active, engaged person. So with that, we're even more excited that you're able to spend some time with us here today and really, learn from your experiences through your career and where you are really leveraging the changes that you're seeing in this industry. So Jason, I will hand it on over to you.
Very cool. I'm excited to be here, though. Thank you so much, Deanna. I was telling Deanna before we started that when I do webinars like this, and I do a fair many of them, it really does help me think through a lot of the things that I'm working through and trying to go through. So I kind of stumbled onto the fact that I was an entrepreneur. I really didn't know that. Um, and we're going to talk about, what are some traits of an entrepreneur to know that you might be, maybe you're an entrepreneur too. Um, but I just love to start businesses, and that's, caused some disruption in my family and with my team and things like that, because it's hard to hang around people that are always have new ideas and want to start things. But I just love it. I love trying to figure out what is a new thing that could be valuable to a marketplace and to see if there's a price associated with it that people would buy that service or invest in it. So just really, really interesting stuff to me. And played around a lot with an accounting firm. So I've been running my firm for 13 years, and lo and behold, I didn't realize that you can be an entrepreneur and run your own firm too, and that's been really, really cool. So we do a lot of experimentation, a lot of playing around in our firm, and we've struck our firm around allowing me to do that. So if you want to find me, there's the 3 websites that you can probably go to. Are the ones that are the best ones to go to: Thriveal.com, Blumer CPAs, and Jason Blumer. Really, that's just a splash page about all the things I'm involved in, ebooks and stuff you can buy and things like that. So I'm excited. So Deanna and I want to find out a lot about you guys. So I've put up a few questions that we're going to ask you. So we're going to ask you some poll questions, and Deanna has some she wants to ask too. So some of them may seem a little related, but what we're trying to do is ask you questions in different ways to figure out how you categorize yourself. And it's just cool to know that stuff as I talk through some of the things I want to share with you. And really, just so you guys know, most of what I do is coaching and consulting to help businesses grow. So that's what I do on a daily basis. So I want you to ask your questions about maybe companies you could grow or start. That's actually a lot of the work I do. So please put your questions in. Honestly, I like answering questions more than I like, blabbing about all the stuff I want to talk about. So it's just more fun for me. So Deanna, you want to do our first poll question, find out who everybody is?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, guys. So I have the first question up, and like Jason said, we're trying to get to know you a little bit and understand who you are as our audience, so that we can gauge the message a little bit better. So I see your answers coming through. That's great. Go ahead and just tell us, if you're a student, if you're a professional, there maybe you're not working right now, or not working in the accounting industry. Just let us know a little bit about yourself. And a few of these questions will see similar, as Jason said, so bear with us as we go through this. All right, so I'm going to leave this up for a few more seconds. We have a few more people that we'd love to hear from you. Okay, 5 and 2 seconds, and I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Okay, and thanks for letting us know this. So Jason, we really have an even split between those on the call who are currently master students, those currently working in public industry, public accounting industry, and those working in accounting, but in an industry, not public accounting. Okay, so 29% across each of those 3. Then we have a small percentage, 11%, currently not studying or working in the accounting industry. And then 4% of those in the audience are undergraduate students.
Cool. Yeah, that is a pretty cool even split. So so we have some other questions real quick, but before we get to those, I just want you to know, so I do a lot of speaking too, and I'll be at a number of events this year. XeroCon, you may have heard of that one in San Francisco by the software Xero, and I went there last year, so I'll be going back in August. in account text. You see that in the top right. That used to be SleaderCon, or the Sleader Conference. So I'll be there in November. And then Sage Summit down there in the bottom right. That's late July. We get to hear Richard Branson, who's one of my favorite entrepreneurs. Wish I could call him a friend, but I don't know that dude. But that guy is a rock star to me anyway. And then the bottom left hand is Deeper Weekend. That's Thriveal's conference. That's a conference I put on. I don't speak at that. I just kind of hang out and help organize it. So those are fun things I'm at, and I would love to meet some of you. And you tell me you were on the accounting entrepreneurship webinar. So let's do. I'm going to ask you a poll question, a little more focused around entrepreneurship and what you think you are. So let's post that one up. Cool.
All right, so it's up. Okay. I think we have a good audience, appropriate audience for this webinar. I'm about to close it out, everyone. About 3 more seconds. All right, here we go. Okay,
Cool.
So we have a split between I am an entrepreneur and I want to be an entrepreneur, 45% each. So again, very appropriate and matching audience with this webinar, so that's great. Then we have 10% that say I'm not an entrepreneur now. So it'll be interesting on how, the advice and the thoughts that you gather from this webinar.
Yeah. So I want to see how those thoughts change by the time we're, by the time we get to the end of the webinar. So I want to jump into the content, Dan. I have one more question, but I'm going to blow through that if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So I like that we know a lot about, who you guys are as far as how you're studying, and now we know how you've classified yourself as an entrepreneur. That's cool. So here's what we're going to try to cover today, and I'm going to try to do it in about 35 minutes to give you guys about 10 minutes to ask questions. At some point I may have to talk fast to get through all of this content. But we're going to talk about Dan Sullivan and who that is. We're going to talk about what an accountant used to be and what an accountant can become now. This was a little surprising to me in my firm, so we're going to learn that. We're going to actually contrast an accountant and an entrepreneur. And in that same section, we're going to talk about what is an accounting entrepreneur. We're going to mix them together and find out what it is. And then something's changed in the profession of accounting. And when I'm talking about accounting, most of the time I'm talking about public accounting. I'm talking about firms that serve clients. I think it's, entrepreneurship and thinking that way is necessary when you also work in a private company as an accountant. That's very important too. But there are trends, some technology and people trends that are changing why accountants can become entrepreneurial now. And you may or may not have heard of the Stan Shy smile curve. We're going to talk a little bit about that and why he made it, what he meant by it. But then we're going to build one for an accounting firm. So I've never done that before, but that was a fun exercise for me to think through. And then it ain't all grins and giggles. That's about the entrepreneur's lifestyle. We're going to learn what that means. And then the last part is really the landscape of the accountant. I have a little test for you to take on this slide. It's a true-false 13-question test to help you know if you're an entrepreneur, if you should move into entrepreneurship. And half of you want to do that, which is really cool. So I love entrepreneurship. So if the half of you that said I want to be an entrepreneur, well, let's just answer that question. Then go ahead and do it. You should. It's awesome. I wouldn't have it any other way. But of course, hopefully the things we talk about will help you know if that's right for you or not. So you may have heard of Dan Sullivan. He is the leader of Strategic Coach. I'm a big coach. I love to coach other people, coach business owners, and I listen to a lot of Dan Sullivan stuff. I've never been through his program, which is Strategic Coach in Canada, but this guy is a brilliant dude. He has been coaching entrepreneurs for, I don't know, 40 years or more, something like that. One podcast I listened to, he said he shared the 4 entrepreneurial freedoms, and I thought they were so cool, and it really just answered a lot of questions for me as to why I've always wanted to own my own business. I didn't understand why. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, there's the blog post that he mentions this. You can see where it is. But this is a quote from that blog post, and basically he says, what is it that motivates people like you to go off on your own with no guarantee of success or even any guarantee of income? And you basically put all hopes of your future income on your shoulders. I mean, you must be nuts if you do that. And you think it's because you're going to get wealthy, but it's not the money or the status as to why people do it. It's the freedom. And when he said that, I just went, duh. That's why. Because a lot of times people have asked me, why do you want to work for yourself? Well, I didn't really know. I just wanted to work for myself. I want to work. I want to call the shots. It was my goal to be the boss. Not be a boss. That was not as interesting to me. But I just wanted to work for myself, and I wasn't sure why until he said it's freedom. And that is so true. That's all I want is freedom. Maybe it's because I have teenagers in my house, but I don't have a nice car, and I'm not wealthy, probably because they're going to college and they need cars and they eat a lot of food. Dang, they eat all my food. But I guess that's what teenagers do. So, but what I do have are the 4 freedoms he mentioned. And the first one is the freedom of time. And I can do anything I want at any time that I want to do it. If I want to, typically when I coach somebody in the 1.5 to 2 hour sessions that we go through, they're pretty emotionally draining sometimes. So I just always get up and go walk through the woods with my dog. And I get to do that. I can do anything I want. Now that also means I get to work at midnight if I want to. And for our team and our CPA firm, we give them that. Deanna mentioned in the bio that we have our team is working under a ROWE, which is ROWE, and that stands for Results Only Work Environment. And basically we have no rules, no policies, no anything. We don't even know what our team is doing day to day. Everything is based around results. Are you completing your results? Nothing else matters to us. No dress codes, no office, no time. We don't track time. We don't have any time sheets. We don't know any of that. So we give them full freedom of their time too, and we just believe that people work best when they have 100% freedom, if they can. Now, employees cannot have full 100% freedom. So if you're an employee, just know that's something you can't ever have, and that's just the way the world works. But if you are an entrepreneur, you have freedom of time. You also have freedom of money. You can make, when Dan Sullivan said that, he was basically saying there is no cap on your income, none. But if you work for somebody, there is a cap. Now, you bear a lot of risk too, right? Because if the business goes down the toilet, then you lose all the money. You're the one who loses it. But there is full freedom of money. You can make as much as you want. You can make as little as you want. Maybe there's a period of time when you want to work less. Well, then you get to take less money if you're financially stable enough to do that. So he's right on the freedom of money. Freedom of relationships. I get to fully decide 100% who I work with, who I don't work with, which clients I take, which ones I don't take. I get to add to my relationships if I want to, and I get to say no. My relationships are full. I will not add any more relationships that I have to work on. So we have full freedom of that. And then, of course, I think the most important one, entrepreneurs have full freedom of purpose. They can do anything they want for whatever purpose they want to do it for. Obviously, because there are probably business models that I disagree with that are actually doing things I disagree with, either morally or ethically. But, that's the world we live in, and that's the country we live in, that they have full freedom of doing, running a business, why they want to run it. So, and when you lead your business with a strong purpose, it's even more fun when you are clear on why you serve. So the freedom of purpose was a big one. So that's it. That was a big deal to me to know it's freedom. That's what I'm going for, and I have it, and I love it. When you work in a situation where you do have full freedom, it is a very enjoyable situation. Can be scary at times for some people, but it's right for the entrepreneurial mindset type person. So what did an accountant used to be? Well, there's an accountant. So I have some cheesy stock photo I had to find. She looks like an accountant, a very nice lady. So when I'm talking about an accountant, you have to understand I like to give my opinions on things. So my opinions are not necessarily right. This is not factual stuff. It's the things I've learned and what I believe. So I'm not trying to disparage an accountant. I'm just trying to describe the accountants I've met and known in the past. And I want to share with you how that can become different. So an accountant is typically known as a technical person, right? They're known for having a technical skill. That's what they're known for. That's why CPAs, no matter what they do, they're stopped and they're asked tax questions on the street or at church or wherever. And I don't know much about taxes. I used to know more, and I still have to know a little bit, but I just don't like taxes. I've never liked taxes. And so if somebody's asking me a tax question, they're certainly going to go to jail if I try to help them. No, that's not totally true. But it's just not an enjoyable thing to me. Accountants I've known have also been doers, that they feel that they are a good accountant, a good CPA, if they're doing work. That's what accountants do. I'm trying to convince you that this is not true. It can be true, but it does not have to be true. If you're a CPA, you can become an entrepreneur and never do another tax return in your life. That can be true for you if you want it to be. But even in large firms, I know even the managing partners still have a book of business they have to manage. And that's really not how you grow or build a company. In a company, you need a CEO committed to the vision, selling, and future direction of the company. You need somebody that's driving a company forward. When that person has a lot of work to do, it really hinders their ability to scale a company. And we're going to see in a little bit that entrepreneurs, that's what they do. They scale and they grow companies. That's what they do. So accountants typically have been in the doer mentality, and I don't think that's always the best way to grow a company if you're an accountant. They've been safe, and maybe that's why we like to hire accountants, right? They're conservative and safe. So sometimes if you're an entrepreneur, that's not always the best move to be safe. You do need to take risks as an entrepreneur. Independent, that's a big word, independence. But we're finding that a lot of accounting entrepreneurs want to shoot a big hole in independence. They don't want independence anymore. They want to be intimately tied deeply into their client's business so that they can consult and coach with them. Yeah, it means you might not can do a compilation, a review, or an audit. But we're going to see that's kind of becoming commoditized anyway. We're trying not to play in a commodity world if in fact we're an entrepreneur. So independence has typically described an accountant in the past, and accountants are focused on the past. Now I'm not saying they only look to the past. I'm saying their work is about things that happened after the fact. So when you're doing accounting, when you're doing taxes, you are doing things that have already happened. You're trying to compile these things. So typically looking behind mentality is what an accountant is just used to doing. Looking forward is very unclear. It's very distracting. It's very hard to do if you're not disciplined enough to know how to look forward. So the past is a safe place to stay. And then typically you'll see, as this accountant is, they're in an office typically. But what can an accountant become? Now see, this is a cool stock photo. This dude has a really cool handlebar mustache. This is not really me, but I wish I was as cool as that dude. He has some cool flowers in his window, but he does kind of look like he's working at home, which is what I do. My office at home doesn't quite look that cool. But anyway, this shows what this is. This guy can be an accountant. I mean, he's got a pencil with some paper, so he must be an accountant. But what can an accountant become? Well, they can become stupid. Now, this is a term that I got to tell you the definition of the term. My partner posed this word to me one time, and I had to define it. Stupid to me is choosing to not know things that don't add value to your role. So let me give you an example. So if I'm chosen or I am the CEO of our firm and I'm supposed to lead the firm forward, I will intentionally remain stupid, and so that I don't keep learning things that are of no value to the role I'm trying to fulfill and the value that I bring to the company. So I will intentionally stop learning accounting, tax, payroll, and audit. Those are things I want to remain stupid on. I don't want to know those things anymore. I don't want to be the go-to person. But accountants, they've always grasped, that technical role. They want to be that person. But what are we talking about today? We're talking about the accounting entrepreneur and the rise of the accounting entrepreneur. As an accounting entrepreneur, you can be a CPA, but you can still remain stupid and move away from those technical things that are not going to add any value to you as you lead a firm and you take over the visionary aspects of what it means to run a firm. The accounting entrepreneur can become a leader. And we're going to see in a minute, leaders their goal is not to do work. They don't produce work typically. The leader, again, drives the company forward. It is an invaluable role. It is a role that many employees don't understand. They look at the leader sometimes as somebody who has an easy life, doesn't work much, but the entrepreneur knows better. They know that it's wiser to build the company and bear the risk and not do the work and think about the vision than it is to be limited by your income and be the one doing the work. And again, you guys may hear me disparaging an accountant, but I'm trying to tell you what an accounting entrepreneur is to me. So if you feel like I might be slamming you or your role, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to explain what can you become as an accounting entrepreneur. I think leadership is extremely important. Entrepreneurs are leaders, or they probably won't run a successful company, so that's very important. Risk-taking is it is necessary as an entrepreneur. You have to do it. You actually don't have a choice to do it. So accountants are becoming risk takers, and by risk I mean the right risks, not dumb things. I'm not saying do dumb things, but take the appropriate risks that do produce appropriate profit for the risk that you take. The entrepreneurial accountant is becoming more intimate with their clients' businesses. They're getting deeper into a role of how to change that client, how to coach them and consult with them to move forward. And visionary accounting entrepreneurs they do take on that role of visionary, which is looking forward in the future, trying to strategically figure out where are we going, how do we get there, why do we want to go that way. Those are the questions with unknown answers that entrepreneurs love to play in. They love to pose those questions, and if you're somebody that does that, then maybe you're finding that you are an entrepreneur, and we'll find that out towards the end if you are. And virtual, you don't have to be virtual, but an office does not have to mean accountant. You can run a full 100% CPA firm virtually online with no paper. We've been doing that for about 4 years, and it took a few years to get there, and it was pretty bumpy because we had a traditional office with clients would come by, and I think that's what bugged me. Clients would drop in anytime they want, and they want to talk to me, and I'm like, this is not cool. I mean, I'm in the middle of something, and it just showed me that people do that, but that's pretty normal, isn't it? I'm like, I've been out of that so much, I can't believe that people let anybody walk in their office and interrupt them. But I've forgotten how normal that was. We don't even answer the phone. We have a document called What We Believe, and when a client fills out our lead form online, my partner automatically sends this document to this new lead, and it says, please read this document, and it's called What We Believe. One of them on there is, we don't answer the phone, so don't be calling us because you're not going to interrupt our work. That's not how we work. We've structured our business in a way to give us full freedom, and people walking in your office and calling you, and you're supposed to answer anytime they call, that's not how we think. So we changed it, and you'll find in a minute that's what entrepreneurs do. When they're in a situation and they don't like it, they have full freedom and authority. They change stuff. And they go through the bumps that it takes to get there, but they really have full freedom to kind of do the things the way they want to do them. So let's contrast the entrepreneur with the accountant, and let's try to meld those two together and see what an accounting entrepreneur is. So a lot of these are similar to the ones we just learned, but we're going to pit them against each other to see exactly what the difference is. So an entrepreneur is a builder. And again, right now we're talking about probably a general entrepreneur. This is true for an entrepreneur running an accounting firm, but it's also true for probably any entrepreneur that you run into that is leading some kind of organization. They are a builder. They're making stuff. And that's important, because basically what they're doing is they're making something out of nothing. That's what they love to do. They actually go, what does not exist, and what can I create out of what does not exist? And that might freak some people out, but entrepreneurs get really giddy and weird about that stuff. They're always wanting to make something new. And in fact, that's part of my job. My job description is to make up new things to sell in the company. And it's a lot of fun. I love it. I also do the sales and business development in our firm. So I make stuff up and then try to sell it. And that is a big game to me. It is so fun. And like one time I made up something and they bought it, and then I doubled the price of it and sold it again like a few months later, and the second client bought it for double the price. I mean, I get pretty excited when we do stuff like that, because I'm playing around with, what are values that people, accept, which is value focused is one of the things entrepreneurs do. But let me jump back up to risk taker. Again, we this, but entrepreneurs do take risks. They understand they must take risks. That is how you build a business. You may have heard of Ron Baker, maybe not. He has a number of books out, good friend of mine. Implementing Value Pricing is a great book of his. It's like an economics textbook. It's kind of a hard book to get through, but it's a really good book. And he poses the question in there, where do profits come from? And he even poses that in conferences that he gives when he speaks. He says, where do profits come from? And everybody raises their hand and gives their idea. But in fact, profits come from risks. When you take on the risk, or when you move risk away from a client to your firm, you basically get to claim profit for that. And of course, I really buy into the risk model. I like to take risks. Now, I have taken dumb risks. I have done that in the past when I was a younger owner. I know Deanna said I've been recognized as 40 under 40, but I'm 45 now, so that was a long time ago when I was recognized that. So at 45, I've made some pretty dumb mistakes and taken some pretty dumb risks. So there are appropriate risks you can take, and in fact, it is a requirement of an entrepreneur to take those risks. An entrepreneur is also value focused. They're always trying to uncover what is a new value that is not being exploited and captured. And by exploit and capture, I mean those words kind of sound bad, but basically what I mean by that is if there's a value that your marketplace wants and you perceive something new that you can give them that's not currently meeting their needs, you can exploit that need. That's basically what you do. You go, I'm going to go step into that situation and I'm going to take over and I'm going to fill a hole, and you're basically exploiting the needs of other people. But you're not forcing them to buy it, right? You're just offering something new that may bring them new value, and you're assigning a price to it. That's important. And when you're value focused, you like to capture some of that value. You'll find a lot of that language I'm talking is in implementing value pricing. Value pricing is a very important thing that a lot of firms are trying. It's a hard, very disruptive business model to implement in a firm, particularly a larger firm. But when you create value, you assign a price to it. And the more value you create for your client, the more of that value you get to capture in the form of a price. And that's what we try to do. And we're always testing our price. price is a determiner of the value that our clients place on something we're selling. And so I created something new, put a price on it. We got to capture some of the value we were giving them. We doubled the price on this same service just to see if we could do it. I mean, does our marketplace perceive the value as higher? Well, certainly they did, because we captured even double the price, because apparently the value is so much higher than we realized. So entrepreneurs are very value-focused people. They only want to create things that are value. And in fact, when they find it, when they find new valuable thing that's where a marketplace is underserved, they're going to try to exploit it and then capture some of that price for the new thing that they're delivering to that marketplace. That's really important. Entrepreneurs are leveragers. By that I mean they're not doers. They understand innately that I am not doing my job, and in fact I am damaging the future of our company if I ever find myself being bogged down in the details of the company. That is a very dangerous thing for an entrepreneur to do, and good ones will fight their way out of details. They'll fight leaving those behind. In fact, you know, there are people that are control freaks, and I'm really the opposite of that, which has hurt me in the past. But a control freak, they may want to leverage another person, but they want to make sure they're doing everything exactly right. You're going to find that entrepreneurs are the extreme opposite. They're like, details, I don't care. I don't even care how you do them. If you do it, if you perform this job differently than how I do it, they really just don't care. They're very expansive thinking people. They want big growth. They want to leverage a team. They want to deliver things to a client with a team behind them doing it. So they're wanting to typically add team members. They're wanting to teach team members. And if they're a good entrepreneur, they want to let the team have the freedom to deliver the service however they want to do it. Now, you got to put some controls around that, but entrepreneurs aren't doers. They're not detail people. They're leveragers, big thinkers, and if you grow a company, if you grow one now, you know that you have to use a team to scale a company. There's only so much you can do with your two hands. Entrepreneurs know that, and they leverage the fact of multi-hands produce, you know, a lot more value in the marketplace. Entrepreneurs are owners. Entrepreneurs really have to be people with the authority to make decisions. You know, to be able to have their way and do the things they love, they have to be in a position of the riskiest position of being an owner, so they can have the authority to make any changes necessary. For example, I can't coach people who aren't really owners, because if I coach them around scaling and building their business in some certain way, I'm going to need them to take you know, some risks. And if they're not the owner, they can't really take those risks. So that's important. And they're visionary. They're always looking forward. They're typically not looking backwards. Sometimes that's a danger for the entrepreneur, because they just go do new stuff and they just kind of pitch it behind them. And somebody needs to be cleaning that mess up that they're often creating. So those are some downsides. So I'm going to pick it up a little bit because we're gonna run out of time. But the accountant is a keeper. They really are concerned with keeping things going, like what's working now, we got to keep that moving. They're a protector. They're protecting the interests of their clients. They're obedient. They're doing what the clients need them to do. Clients say, I need a tax return. They go, okay, I'll do it. But what's happening in that relationship is, and you can kind of compare that to the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur thinks of a new thing and says, hey, marketplace, would you like this? And what price would you like it for? Whereas the accountant sits there with open hands and says, somebody tell me kind of what they want, and then I'll do whatever somebody tells me. There's not really the creation of new things. And again, you're going to notice these are not all bad. I'm not trying to say bad things. These are all good, but these are not entrepreneurial traits. Accountants, they work hard. They work hard in tax season. A lot of times they create partnerships, but you know, it's consensus authority, meaning they're trying to make decisions about the future of a company with the consensus of 20 partners, and you just can't do that. That's not how you grow a company. That will always break down. It'll always cause problems because 20 people have 20 ideas, and nobody's wrong or right. In fact, the entrepreneur is never wrong or right. It's just all they do is pick the path forward. We're going to go try this. An entrepreneur is really They're an experimenter. I could have put that on there. They just experiment and try new things. And here's the last one that's always been surprising. Accountants, firms work. And by that I mean, when I speak to accountants and I tell them about how to leverage and change their firms, they have a great comeback, but it's working, and they're right. They have nice cars. They work their butts off during tax season, but what they're doing is working, and I can't argue with it. So it's hard to help somebody change something when, in fact, what they're doing is working. Of course, for an entrepreneur, that's not good enough because you're going to see here, if they don't like something, the last bullet point you see down here under the accounting entrepreneur, they change things if they don't like it. So we used to have a tax season, and we hated it, so we changed it. We said we're not serving individual clients anymore. We only contract with companies. And it takes changes to do those things, but if you want to do it, and you're an accounting entrepreneur, and you run a firm, you get to do it, and that is so cool. Like, I don't have to be good at taxes and audits because I don't like that stuff. But as a CPA running a CPA firm, you're thinking, well, I have to know that stuff. Well, that's actually not true anymore. And even as an accounting entrepreneur, you can innovate new services, you can create new business models, change team structures, change pay structures, you can start pricing instead of billing. I mean, there is all kinds of things you can do as an accounting entrepreneur, and I'm pretty pumped about it. So what's changed? A lot's changed. These are just some ideas. Technology and people have changed. So here's three big things that are changing in the technology side. Basically, software is becoming the technician. Of course, we don't do taxes by hand anymore. Hopefully nobody on this call does that. But that used to be normal, right? My dad was a CPA. My father-in-law was a CPA. They did taxes by hand. That is a freaking trip. I mean, just even thinking about people doing that is just mind-boggling and crazy. Well, it's just getting even better. Now accounting software pumps the transactions in from the bank. There's still a little interpretation you got to do around that, but our technical work is just getting easier, and some accountants don't like it when I say that, but I think it's true. In fact, we can't do our jobs without software. Software is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Now my consumers suggest software add-ons to our accounting products. They just did it this past week. One of our design firms said, hey, what about this integrated product that goes, with Xero, our accounting product? They get to do that. They have the knowledge now. Software is everywhere, so they have access to it just like us. And software is beautiful. It's being built. By that I mean it's being built in intuitive ways, and they're using user experience designers to make software intuitive to humans. So it's just more accessible now. And the people part, let's throw up the three things here. Clients have changed. This is what a lot of current accounting firms don't realize, is that their clients will put up with some crazy stuff. For example, we said we're drafting every firm on the 1st to the 15th over a 12-month contract. If you want to be our client, we're going to draft your price. There's no other way to do it. And you think, okay, what if you did that in your firm now? All right, starting May 1st, you're going to tell every client you're going to draft their price. They would think you're nuts. Well, we did it. And it took us about 4 or 5 years to get there. But clients will allow you to do new things. And when you realize that, it's super cool. They will let their CPA be virtual. They will work with a CPA firm that they've never met. And that is really pretty cool. So our clients are changing. And our clients are younger. The second one, you see they're digital natives. They've grown up on technology. It's just not weird anymore to look at your tax return on your mobile phone. Those things are not odd to them. So it allows you to be different as an accounting entrepreneur. And of course, clients are everywhere. Your team is everywhere. You can serve anyone, anywhere. I was coaching a virtual firm that is international. They do taxes for everybody all over the world, but they're virtual. Sometimes they're in Spain. Sometimes they're in, Bogota. I mean, they can go wherever they want, or sometimes they're in Chicago. It just doesn't matter. But those things have changed. So let's blow through the stand shy smile curve real quick. Stand shy, This guy was the CEO of Acer Computers. I don't know if you've heard of that. But, of course, he talked about the smile curve in terms of manufacturing. And basically what he figured out, obviously you can see the smile there in the middle, and he did it and said, notice that the value chain on the left-hand side, and notice the commodity part on the bottom part of the axis there. He noted that the curve is higher where the value is higher. And conceptually, before you manufacture computers, the R&D, the branding and design of the computer is the most valuable piece, but the manufacturing itself is a commodity piece. That's the lowest valued piece in the commodity chain. And then the value goes up again in the distribution, you know, the smart logistics of pushing Acer computers all over the world, marketing, and then sales and service. The logistics become more valuable than the commodity. And I thought, well, let's make one for accounting firms. So let's put up our smile curve, and we see our value from low to high on the left there. And our work completion, that's a time area down there, our work completion from earlier to later. And these are things I've learned, but basically the valuable things are the envisioning and creation of new services and the testing and experimentation of those. Those are now the valuable things. And when I tell people that our firm creates 1 to 2 brand new services per year to sell, they just think, what is that? Because in their mind, the compliance that they do is tax, payroll, audit. You know, there is nothing else. But that's not true. I hope I've proven that to you, that the clients are different. They'll allow you to be creative now, and you can fully be an entrepreneur in an accounting firm. The compliance is now the lowest part of the value, and then it becomes more value as you start extracting and reporting items out of the compliance, and then finally you start coaching and helping them measure and know what the information means. Just like the Stan Shy curve, we can kind of dissect this and see that the valuable parts where we push up the value chain, the innovation pushes the value chain up, makes it high, and later in the service, the sense making, I call it. When you're making sense of the compliance that you're doing, that pushes the value high too. And in the middle, the compliance, government required work, again, where we have not been innovative, meaning we didn't make up the service, the government imposed something on us, that is pushing our value chains down, and that work is becoming compliance work, less valuable, and that's the work, that's the area where the software companies are targeting, you know, because that's the only thing they can do. The opposite sides of the smile curve, software can't target as easily. They can't envision new services, and they can't do sense making and make sense out of the service that the software company was producing as far as compliance. So what's your response to the smile curve? Okay, so maybe this is an example. Maybe you're not doing, maybe you're only doing the lowest part of the smile curve, the compliance. Well, that'll probably last for another 20, 25 years maybe, but I would not want to be playing in that. So if you want to be a strategic entrepreneur, you want to start making strategic moves to push your firm and take your firm up the value curve. That's what you're trying to do. And so you're going to need to start practicing these things that are of higher value. And again, I've given you an example of services we can create that can just double the price overnight, because an entrepreneur can exploit the value. If the value's there and you sell it for $4,500, but really they would have paid $9, then you get to double it the very next day. It doesn't matter. And you have those freedoms as an entrepreneur, and it's super cool to see that kind of stuff happen. But you got to start moving yourself up the value curve. Now, there are a lot of things you got to consider to move up that value curve. Like, you need a CEO in your company. You need somebody committed to the innovation. Somebody's got to have that on their job description. You need to take work away from that person. You got to give it to other people. Well, that probably means you need more clients. You need more profit to hire somebody to do that work. So there's a lot of things you have to do, you know, to get that done. So being an entrepreneur is just not all grins and giggles. So I want to tell you the things you got to consider as you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. You may hear some of the things I'm saying about our firm, but I'm going to tell you I messed up so many things, and it took, you know, 5 to 7 years to make some of these things reality. So when you hear me say do this, you're hearing the end result. But this first bullet point, and really the third one, is this stuff takes a long time to change a business, to change a business model. And this point number 2 is a big deal and something I've run into. If you're changing things and you're selling things to clients they've never seen before, you don't readily understand what you're selling. If you made up something, like it's easier to sell a tax return, right? Because everybody knows what that is. But if you made something up and you try to sell it, you have a lot harder sales cycle. You gotta explain the value. You gotta help them understand why it's valuable. And these new things are not readily understood by clients. It is worth doing, but it's just a harder commitment you're making to selling brand new things. And an entrepreneurial lifestyle is the freedom to work all the time. So sometimes as an entrepreneur, you're going to work your butt off, and you're going to work a lot. You do have the freedom to work when you want, but that means you have the freedom to work at midnight sometimes. But you also have the freedom to not work at midnight. So what we're saying is you have freedom, but you're going to work a lot probably because you love it. And an entrepreneurial firm, which is what our firm is, we're committed to creating new services, testing them, selling them. It's a little disruptive to live in that model. It's a little more chaotic, takes a little more manhandling around innovation. The team has to understand what it means to be experimental and why we're always trying and testing new things, because they sometimes want to keep things the same, and that's just not what our firm does. So it's a little bit of a disruption to live in it. And then if firms really push me and fight me on some of the 3 sacrifices they often have to make to change more into an entrepreneurial firm. And if you change business models and pricing models and you're creating new things, you often will have to sacrifice clients. Some clients don't fit when you start changing things. Sometimes services that you've always done can't be, like for example, if you implement value pricing, that means you got to only sell services that can be value priced. And if you're selling a commodity service, sometimes you're going to be forced to ditch audits because you can't sell them the way your firm requires you to sell them based on value anymore. And so those are sacrifices. You might have to cut services from your company. Similarly, sometimes a team model. As you change things, often teams will change as the firm changes. And a lot of people don't like that, but it's just kind of part of the sacrifices. So it's not all grins and giggles moving into the entrepreneurial lifestyle. So this is it. We're going to have one more question after this slide. Maybe you guys are posing some questions and then we'll be done. But this is basically the landscape of the accountant that I'm talking about. You can be a public accounting, private accounting. You can be an employer. You can be an owner. And I'm really talking about that upper sector, that sector to the top left where you are an owner of a public accounting firm. I think you can leverage the accounting entrepreneur role there more. And if you want to know if you're an entrepreneur, why don't you answer these 13 questions? I was going to read through them, but I won't. They're just true and false questions. They're just things I made up to see if these would help you know if you're an entrepreneur. And if you're answering more than half of these as true, you might be the entrepreneur you always feared you were. And so it might be time for you to take steps to run your own firm or to be employed as an entrepreneur somehow. But it is really cool that the landscape of owning an accounting firm is now the landscape of entrepreneurs. It is where entrepreneurs need to be. They need to live. And that's pretty exciting to me. And I stumbled on that. I didn't realize it. But now we're building a firm around that fact. And it is a lot of fun. My partner and I have a lot of fun making up new things, trying new things, though we have to work through a lot of problems that come with being first on the scene to everything. And that's a rough thing to live through. But for the right people, it's kind of exciting, and it is for me. So, Deanna, we're done. Let's ask this one last poll question and see if anybody's thoughts on entrepreneurship have changed from what we saw earlier. We saw half and half, I believe, right?
Yeah, just about. So, yeah, it'll be interesting on what we see now. So everybody, the poll is up. So let us know now, what do you want to be? Okay. I think there's some positive response, Jason, to your presentation.
I was hoping people didn't they do not want to be an entrepreneur now after this webinar. That would be pretty bad. So
I think you're going to be pleased. All right, everybody, I'm going to close out since we're running short on time and want to get to a couple of questions. Okay, so take a look at
wow.
the 83%
Whoa.
being an entrepreneur. Isn't that great?
We convinced some people.
Yeah.
You guys need to start your own firms, please.
That's good. Well, it's certainly exciting what you shared. Okay, I'll hide that.
Well, very cool. Well, I think we have just the Q&A. So, Deanna, I don't know if you've got those questions. If you want to pose those now, or
Yeah, I do. And just as a reminder, everybody. So even though we have just a few minutes, go ahead and put in your questions. If we don't get to them, then Jason and I will look at them after the fact. Jason, I hope you're okay with that. I'm kind of off.
Yeah, I'll do it. No, I want to answer them all. Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead and put in your questions, and because again, we do want to hear what you're wondering about. All right. All right. So first off, Jason, when you talked about kind of the transition in of a practice or a firm, and you said it takes time, 5 to 7 years. So someone wants to know about. I mean, do you run into a potential branding issue? I mean, so you've got to change from kind of the transactional things to the visionary things, and since it takes so long, how do you manage the transition over several years?
Yeah. Wow. That's a big question. So what we did is we did it in small pockets. So if you want to change from what you are now, which might be a compliance-based firm, to a more entrepreneurial-based experimental firm, just do it in small bites. That's how you do it. Test it with 2 or 3 clients. If you want to do value pricing, test it with 1 or 2. So you don't make large, sweeping, risky changes to your firm. I have done that in the past, and it is very hurtful. It's too risky, really. So you make these changes in small increments, and when you do that, and when you see what's working, and you probably want to experiment over the period of a year, depending on how large your firm is, you might even take longer. Then you roll out in sections. Maybe you do it in team-based sections, like this audit team is going to roll out a new idea. They're going to roll that out just on the audit side, then on the tax side. Then eventually you put rules in place for probably after 2 or 3 years of testing, and you actually start placing requirements on your client so that they have to interact with you in a certain way. And again, that's another risky move. But entrepreneurs, they say how things go, and you're eventually going to start placing some requirements on your client to interact with your firm in the way that you require, because you know how best you can deliver value. So in summary, do it in small sections, then roll it out in bigger ways, and then finally make it a policy and rules firm-wide after a few years. I hope that helped.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so someone wants to know that, if you're someone who loves innovation and new software, but you also still like regulations, I mean, where do you fit that person or yourself into the landscape if you are that person?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, Deanna, do you think it would be okay to go to 310 just for those who want to stay, and then we can answer them after the ones that don't want to stay? Or
I'm okay with it. Jason, if you're okay with it. So those of you listening, we are recording this, and we definitely understand if you have to drop, okay? We'll record until 3:10 or 10 more minutes, and you will receive a link of the recording. If there are some questions we still don't get to, we can handle those as well, all right? So drop off if you need to. You'll get a recording of the remaining questions.
Very cool. So let me restate the question. Was basically, what if you do love compliance and regulatory work, and that's fine, but you also are an innovative person? Well, if you do choose to becoming an accounting entrepreneur, it's probably sad to say there are sacrifices you have to make. There are trade-offs, and you probably can't do both. So you're going to have to choose, do I want to be an accounting entrepreneur that leads the firm, becomes the visionary person? Because if you are, you will become a leverager to grow a team, and your team will do that work, and you must stop at some point. Maybe if you're smaller, you can still do a little bit, but you will find eventually that you must stop the detail work, and unfortunately you have to give it up.
Okay. All right. Someone is early career. All right, and they want to know a little bit about kind of when you started. So they're asking, when did you start? And this person's graduating in 1 year, and would like to know how to assess when he will have enough experience and capital to start something.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I wanted to start my own business like a long time ago. So I've been doing this, so I've been running my own firm since 2003. I worked in other public firms for 3 or 4 years before that. Then I was a private accountant for years. So I graduated in 93, just to give people an idea of, kind of when I graduated. I did want to start companies earlier, but I was not ready. I was ready when I was finally, when I finally did do it. I don't know if you're ever going to be ready, but you do want to get some experience working for some good people, some smart people. You want to see what their processes look like so you'll know how to change them. I would definitely work 5 years, 3 to 5 years to get some of those technical things nailed down before you move into leading other people who are going to do that technical work for you.
Okay, great. So what are the top items or products that you recommend a new accounting firm absolutely needs in order to start, to begin?
So I don't want to sound contradictory, but if you want to make it easy just starting out, the world understands accounting, tax, and payroll. They just understand it. The entrepreneur is somebody who sells things to people that they know they need. Now, sometimes the entrepreneur is selling new things to people, and they're having to explain it a long time, and they have large prices on them. Or sometimes clients just come to you for whatever traditional commodity, transactional commodity that firms sell. So I do think it's important for you to sell what we know the world needs, and we know the world needs accounting, tax, and payroll. It's a really easy thing to sell. If you're a CPA firm, they will understand it. They will buy it from you. It will build your company. It will allow you to leverage a team, hire people to do some of that work for you. But after that, then you want to free yourself up as the owner and the visionary to begin making new things and experimenting with new things while your team is caring for clients with what they already need. So when you hear me saying make up new things, be visionary, I'm not saying clients don't want accounting, taxes, and payroll. They do want those things. I'm just saying those are not the high-value things. So eventually it's hard to build a full firm around that and just scale to a large size unless you're becoming the expert at some new thing you've created, probably.
Okay, great. So what are your thoughts surrounding working with bookkeeping firms and how to grow your business by working with and developing bookkeeper skills?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our Thriveal is one of the communities I started, and that's a community of entrepreneurial CPA firm owners, really all over the world. So we have about 70 members, and they're in a private community, and they coach and talk with each other. And we see them doing a lot of crazy stuff, which is kind of fun. Some have success only doing one thing, like I will only do bookkeeping. Some have success only doing taxes, and they'll work with each other. One will do the accounting only, and they'll use the other Thriveal firm to do taxes. I do think that's harder. I will say this. If you're a firm that a client can't get their full services from, then you're asking the client to hire 2 or 3 professionals. And whether you like it or not, they have to go find other providers. Now, if you can't be that provider, it's fine. You can be a strong bookkeeping firm. But you've limited your market, basically, because the clients that come to us, they love the fact that they don't have to go anywhere else. They can get strategic counseling, coaching, and growth help here, and we can handle all the accounting, tax, and solid payroll and controllership work also in the firm. It makes the firm more complicated to run, so I need a partner to help me run the operations and things like that. But when you split up services, I think you're asking the client to take on a little bit of a burden, and it's just a harder sell. But I think it can work.
Okay. So do you have a recommendation for startup software for an accounting firm, both for taxation and also financial functions?
Oh, wow. There's like a billion pieces of software out there.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's helpful to, I don't know, instead of commit yourself just to one piece of software. Some firms do that, and that's fine. Sometimes they say only use this software. That can work, but again, that limits your market a little bit. The way we've limited our client base is we've said we're virtual, so you must use a cloud-based software. We'll support you on whatever cloud-based software you use. But you must be cloud-based. We won't even do hosted type accounting products, and we can't do any desktop. So you cannot be our client unless you have cloud-based software where you log in through a browser. That's the only software we'll support. So that's the restriction we place on our clients. It's hard to say. We're fans of Xero, xero.com. Probably 95% of our clients are on Xero. And there's some great payroll-based products that you can use online. We use UltraTax online, and that is a hosted product. But we're limited in our profession too. There's just not really robust browser-based tax software. Intuit does have a product, but I think it's for a smaller market. We need more complicated products. So that totally depends. Whatever you like and a lot of people are using, I would use that because you're going to probably find a market of a lot more clients to start your firm with.
Okay, we have a question that's specific to an industry, but I'm thinking that maybe you can use it as an example that could be applicable.
Sure.
Okay, broadly. So this person is asking about, starting a hotel, all right? And to start a hotel, what does an entrepreneurial accountant have to look out for?
So I'm going to interpret the question a little bit. I think it's an accountant who's going to start a hotel, so the accountant is kind of an entrepreneur because they want to start their own business, but it's not in the world of public accounting. It's actually to run a hotel. Deanna, is that how you interpret that question? Do you think that's right?
I would think accounting work within an industry, but also someone who's more involved with the running of the industrial company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would probably think if you're running your own company, then I would be thinking about things as far as how the smile curve works, and even internally, if you're just a private accountant, let me get to that smile curve. I think if you're an accountant who runs a hotel, then you probably would want to eventually outsource the compliance to a firm because they're probably going to be better at that. But I think you can still create new services that go along with the hotel that you sell, spa services, whatever. And even on the higher end side, if you're trying to think about higher value things around the hotel business that you're running, you want to figure out how to extract information from your compliance accountant to start reading summarized financial data in a way that helps you run your company. Maybe instead of just being pumped, tons of profit and loss and balance sheets every month. You want a one-page dashboard with 7 to 8 key items of cash-based items that help you know the trends of how your hotel is doing. And so the analysis and extraction of summarized data is something we try to do for our clients. So we tell them, stop looking at your financial statements. Those are things you're not supposed to look at. Those are to prepare tax returns. But extracting the data, summarizing it, making sense of it, and putting it on a one page, that you can give to an entrepreneur and help them run a business based upon that limited summarized data. So internally, if you're running a hotel and you're an accountant, you might be just the person to build a one-page dashboard for yourself to help you know what are the key metrics I need to know in my hotel or in any industry that you serve that tell me whether I'm doing well or doing poorly and what I need to do next.
Okay. All right, we have it. We're 11 after the hour, so we have
All right.
3 questions that come in. Can we just address those offline, Jason, and then we
Let's
can
do
let
it.
everybody go? Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much. This was great. I loved it. I hope everybody
Fun.
else did. Um, but thanks everybody for being here. Look out for an email from us with the recording and also a few of these remaining questions. And thank you
Thanks,
all.
everybody. I appreciate it.